welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Olusayo-Prada. If you are new here, welcome as well. Thank you guys for leaving comments, liking my videos. If you've been watching my previous videos, thank you very much. If you haven't yet subscribed to my channel, now is the right time to do it. Please click the subscribe button below and also like this video. I appreciate the engagement, and this would encourage me to keep more useful videos coming on this channel, as I plan to be more consistent with this channel going forward. Anyway, guys, in today's video, what I want to share is my 2 cents and some advice for people who plan to migrate from Nigeria or some other country to Canada in 2025. I don't even know if a lot of people are still migrating to Canada. I'm not very familiar with the immigration statistics to Canada anymore. I know that a lot has changed with respect to the Canadian immigration process, but I'm just sharing this video in case someone is going to be useful to someone, because I've lived in Canada for 3 years plus now. I came to Canada as a student and now I work and I live here. So I do feel like I have some wealth of experience to share from. So in case you're moving from Nigeria or an African country to Canada, this is some information that I think would be useful to you, some advice. I would be sharing, like, I'll be busting some myth. I just feel like it is important for people to know what they are getting into when they are migrating to Canada or some other Western country, because there's a lot of myth out there on social media. So I'm hoping that this video would be useful to someone. Yeah, grab your popcorn and let's enjoy this video together. The first myth that I'll be bursting as it relates to like relocating from Nigeria to Canada is that as soon as you get to Canada, you'd be making a lot of money, and you'd be able to afford, the soft life that you've always envisioned when you started planning to move to Canada. Unfortunately, that is not the reality. There's no money on the streets of Canada. When you get to Canada, it does take, even though Canada has a lot of opportunities, more opportunities than we have back in Nigeria, it does take a long process to actually settle into your dream life, and you need to be patient with yourself. For example, when I came to Canada in 2022, I came as a student, and even though I was a student and I was just looking for a part-time job, I struggled to get a part-time job. And I was a professional in Nigeria before I relocated to Canada. And when I came here, I expected that the part-time job that I would get would be some sort of um work that relates to my profession. I'm an accountant by profession. So I expected some sort of white collar job to do, even if it was part-time, but that was not the reality, guys. I searched and searched for a white collar job. I did not get, and this was the experience of several other students like me at the time. And I had to settle for um, a blue collar job. I ended up working as a sales associate for like a healthy food and drinks restaurant. I worked with Booster Juice in Canada. Throughout my studies, I did my masters for 2 years, and throughout that period, I was a sales associate. What you guys call sales girl in Nigeria, that's what I was for 2 years during my masters. And it was during this period that I learned that there's dignity in labor in Canada. There is no job that is subpar. There is no job that is a menial job in Canada. Every job is respected. And the money that I made while at this sales associate or sales girl job actually paid my rent and helped with my subsistence during my that period as a student. So one thing that you need to learn when you're coming to Canada is that even though you've attained a particular high position in your profession back in Nigeria, you need to learn to be patient and you need to learn to be humble. Do not feel like any job is beneath you. It takes a process to move. I mean, you're packing up your whole life. That's a huge step. You're leaving the country that you grew up in, that you were born in, and that you've grown accustomed to a new country where you probably know you know no one in this new country. So you need to give yourself some grace. You need to be patient with yourself, and you need to learn to be humble. I was a professional when I left Nigeria. I was in a senior position, and then as a student doing my master's, I had to become a sales associate. And during this period, I did not look down on myself. I didn't look down on the job I was doing either. I just took it as, okay, this is a process. This is my reality. This job is it's helping me meet my daily needs, and that's just fine. I'm adding value to myself. I know this is just a process. You need to motivate yourself. If you're a Christian, you need to go to your Bible and remind yourself of God's promises for you to help you keep yourself on the right track. You need to keep your eyes on the goal. You need to ensure that you don't get distracted. Even though when you move to Canada, your initial situation does not look like the dream life or the soft life that you envisioned, do not lose sight of your vision. Just be patient with yourself, and just know that in due time, the life that you dreamed of is going to come through if you stick to it and you don't give up and you don't develop a nasty attitude. The second myth that I'll be busting is that your degree in Nigeria will open doors for you, like your degree back home would open job opportunities for you. That is not entirely true. In the Canadian professional job system, they really value work experience. So, for example, if you just did your BSc in Nigeria and you've not gotten any work experience, and you come to Canada, you just may struggle to get a job, at least from experience of other people. This is what I've realized, that here in the Canadian work system, they really value prior experience. So if you're just graduating in Nigeria, if you're just completing your BSc and you aim to, come to Canada, I would advise that you get some work experience, probably work in your field for like 1 or 2 years before you come over here, because trust me, that work experience is going to open more job opportunities for you. I was chatting with my boss the other day and I asked, like, what do you look out for in a resume when you're trying to employ someone to take on a role on the team? And my boss said between education history and work experience, they value work experience more than education history. This doesn't mean they're not going to verify your education history, but your work experience is really important because they need someone to come on the team to give hands-on experience that they already have. There's no much time to do training like back in Nigeria. So it's important that you get your work experience if you plan to come here to do a professional job. It's going to go a really, really long way for you in settling. The third myth that I'll be busting about living in Canada is that you'll be working back to back. On TikTok, on Instagram, I see these videos of Nigerians complaining that in Canada you're just gonna be working back to back. You're not gonna have a life. You're just gonna be working several shifts round the clock. The myth about this is that this doesn't apply to you if you have a career, if you're in a professional career, like if you're a doctor, you're an accountant. Scratch that. I don't know much about the medical field, but if you're an accountant, if you work in 9 to 5, if you're in tech, if you're in IT, you're in HR, you work in 9 to 5. This myth of working back to back, this story of working back to back and not having a life, working weekends is not true. That will not be your experience if you work a professional job, if you work a 9 to 5. I have my weekends to myself. My employer does not call me on weekends. I don't call my employer on weekends. I do enjoy a huge amount of work-life balance. So if you have a career in Nigeria, good for you. Come to Canada, that would help you. If you're a fresh graduate just completing your BSc in Nigeria, I would say that you should aspire to work a professional career. This would really help you in moving and settling in Canada. You won't always have to work back to back. You're going to have a life. I have a life. I know lots of my friends have lives. So that is a huge myth. The next advice that I'm going to be sharing is that you should be wary of believing everything that you see on social media about the lifestyle of people that live in Canada or people that live abroad. One of the things that you would find, or one of the trends that you would find when you watch the lifestyle of Nigerians in Canada or in other Western countries in the US, is that a couple of people travel several times a year, going on lots of vacations. Be wary about believing that kind of lifestyle. That is not entirely the reality of most Nigerians here. And this doesn't mean that you're not going to have the money to do that, but that is not the ideal. I found that a lot of people that live this lifestyle, traveling several times a year, are either working high income jobs, very high income jobs, or on the other hand, even though they are working high income jobs, they take on a lot of debt to be able to sustain the flashy lifestyle that they live. They take on a lot of credits to travel. And me personally, I do not, I'm an accountant, right? So I'm quite financially savvy, if I do say so myself. So it doesn't make sense. It's not advisable to pile on a lot of debt because you want to live a flashy lifestyle. Debt is not entirely a bad thing, but when you're taking on debt to have fun, to travel and live a lifestyle to impress someone, or just to show that you have a flashy lifestyle, it's gonna come back and bite you in the back. That is not a financially savvy way to live. So do not have the expectation that once you get to Canada, you start living the flashy life, you start traveling, taking several vacations a year. It does take some time to live that kind of life. It does take years of financial planning, investment to become someone that lives that kind of life. I'm not saying that kind of life is not possible, but it does take some sacrifice to genuinely live that kind of life without becoming a huge debtor in Canada. Because one of the things you'd find in Canada is that you are encouraged to take on credit, you're encouraged to take on debts. It's not like back in Nigeria where it's not easy to get a loan. Here, it's quite easy to get a loan, and before you realize it, you have loads of debts and you don't have the means to settle that debt. So please be wary of what you believe on social media about the lifestyle of people living in Canada abroad. There's also this myth that as soon as you get to Canada, you can buy a house, or you can buy a car. The same thing that I said about the traveling lifestyle applies to this. It does take some saving, some financial decisions to be able to live the dream lifestyle that you want. So if you get here and you're not able to buy a house immediately or buy a car immediately, that does not mean that you have failed. It takes a process. Be patient with yourself and don't compare yourself with the people that you see on social media. The next myth that I'm going to burst is that once Nigerians get to Canada, um, the so-called Christians in Nigeria, they stop going to church when they get to Canada. That is not true. There's this story that I hear on social media where people say, "Oh, it's just back home that you need prayers because things are not working in Nigeria. But as soon as you get to Canada or some Western country where the system is better, you're not gonna need God again. You're not gonna need to pray again. People don't go to church again." That is a huge, huge lie. A lot of Nigerians still go to church, and a lot of Canadians go to church. A lot of Caucasians here go to church, contrary to popular belief that it's just black people or Nigerians that are Christians. A lot of Caucasians here take their Christian faith very seriously. Don't think that when you get to Canada, all your need for God is going to end. That is not true. All your needs may be met. The previous needs that you used to have in Nigeria may be met. You no longer need to pray for the PHCN to bring light, or you no longer need to pray for electricity, hot water. But even though all your needs are met, you're still going to need God. One important area that you're going to need God is for your mental health. Your mental health in Canada or in any other Western country is gonna shake because the lifestyle here is very different. Unlike back home where our community is very we're very communal back home. The culture here is very individualistic. So you're gonna be lonely at some point when you move to Canada newly, especially if you're moving to Canada without family, you would experience some loneliness. So you need to learn to be happy alone. Learn to be happy, love yourself, learn to be comfortable in your own skin, learn to, you know, do things that make you happy. You are gonna need God to keep your mental health. You're going to need God. God is the way. The word of God is gonna keep you going. It's gonna keep you joyful. That joy unspeakable that the Bible speaks about. You would experience it when you rely on God, when you stay close to God. So it is a myth that when you move abroad, you're not gonna need God anymore. You're gonna need God. You always need God. You cannot live life without God. If you don't want to miss it in Canada or US, another Western country, hold on tightly to your Christian faith because you'd be glad that you know God when you move over here. The next advice that I'll be sharing is that it's similar to what I just shared. You need to learn to be resilient. You need to learn to be someone who is happy even when there is no friend, even when there's no family. You need to learn to just enjoy life, love yourself, enjoy the little privilege in life, the little benefits of life, find joy in the little moments. You need to learn to be resilient, to not give up on yourself, do not take your eyes off your vision of your goal for your life. Yeah. And the next advice is, or the next myth that I'm going to be bursting is that everyone gets used to winter after a while. That's a huge, huge myth. Winter is in Canada is very extreme, it's very cold, and even Canadians, a lot of Canadians are not used to winter. Even though they were born here and they've been living here their whole lives, they still do not love winter. A lot of Canadians look forward to the summer months. So the cold in Canada does not, you don't get used to it, I'm someone that has always preferred cold to heat. Even when I was in Nigeria, I found the heat in Nigeria unbearable. But moving to Canada, I've experienced like 3 winters in Canada now, 3 or 4, and I'm still not used to the cold in Canada. It does you don't get used to it. You just learn to live in winter and look forward to summer, look forward to spring. Yeah, so you need to expect that the cold in Canada is quite extreme. Finally, one advice I'm going to share is when you get to Canada, ensure that you start filing your taxes as soon as the first tax season arrives after you get to Canada. Do not delay, even if you're a student or you've never worked in Canada before, still file your taxes. One of the benefits of filing your taxes in Canada is that you get tax credits. As an immigrant, you get a lot of tax credits. That is, the government pays you after you file your taxes, and then you're able to use that money to probably for your subsistence. You're able to use that money, you're able to save that money, you're able to invest that money. But as an accountant, I'm just gonna tell you, start filing your taxes as soon as your first tax season arrives in Canada. It's gonna go a long way. The tax credits is gonna help you a whole lot. So that's all the advice that I'll be sharing in this video. If more topics come to mind, I will definitely share. More subjects come to mind, I'll definitely share in another video. But I hope that you have learned a thing or two from this video. One thing that I wish I knew before I left Nigeria is that um the opportunities in Canada are so much. Like, if I knew what I know now earlier, I would have left Nigeria earlier. There are opportunities for you in Canada. Your life can be so, so, so much better than you even envisioned. Even though you need to be patient, it takes a process. I wish I had left Nigeria earlier. for Canada, because when you put in the work, when you're patient with yourself, Canada does reward you beautifully, and you'd be glad that you came here on the long run. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching this video up to this point. If you have any questions, please leave it below. If you're moving to Canada from Nigeria or another country, welcome to Canada. The summary of this video, what I would say is just manage your expectations. There is no perfect place. Canada, I do not regret coming to Canada. Canada has rewarded me with a lot more opportunities than I had when I was back in Nigeria, but manage your expectations. There's a time for everything. Be patient with yourself, and do not lose sight of the vision that you had before you came to Canada. Everything will work out in its due time. Do not be proud, be humble, be patient with yourself. Love yourself. No matter what you have to go through when you get here, let your self-esteem be up here, because yeah, God is going to restore you to the great position, or even a better position than you had when you were back home. Yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Please subscribe below and like this video so that I can do more useful videos like this. Bye for now.